Nice, nice.
I don't know if the attendees got that notification either. So like I was explaining earlier, we are live on Facebook now. So those who want to see our first webinar in our new series of the new year can absolutely do so. We are also recording this webinar, so that you'll get a link to that, our attendees will, afterwards, and you can go back and watch in your own time, just in case you need to go back and want to learn something. I will also say a quick housekeeping before we get started. We did send out a tip sheet ahead of time, kind of a one-page document for you to take notes, and that's how we've structured our presentation. But if you have that up, that's great. I will also just let you know kind of where to take notes and what those prompts are, just in case you don't have that in front of you. All righty. It is 1 o'clock according to my computer. So Abby, I think we should go ahead and get started. We'll let people come in as they join, but hello everyone, welcome. My name's Erin Jordan. I'm an account coordinator here at Keystone Click. And this is our best practices webinar specifically focused on blogging. I'm joined today by Abby. Abby, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Abby Radawan. I'm also an account coordinator here at Keystone Click. And Erin and I are really excited for the next half-hour quick little run through about blogging best practices.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to dive right in. As I was explaining earlier, you should have received a tip sheet ahead of time in your email. If you don't have that up, that's totally fine. We'll let you know kind of some prompts to jot down some quick notes. Our goal for this webinar is that you get started with planning your blog calendar for the year. And that will serve you greatly, not only in blogging for your business, but also for your overall content marketing strategy. So without further ado, we're going to get going. And Abby, I think you're talking first about knowing your audience.
Yeah, that's me. So as with any content marketing, the first step with blogging, and maybe even especially so with blogging, is to know your audience. It's really hard to write content when you don't know who you're talking to, right? It's just like if you were trying to have a conversation with a stranger that you know nothing about, like you don't know how to connect with them. And it's exactly the same with your blogs. So on the slide, you'll see a few questions that we recommend taking into consideration when you're trying to nail down who your audience really is. First is just start with your current customers. Who are you currently serving? And then of those customers, do they have anything in common? Or are there maybe a few different groups among them that share different common attributes? That's a good stepping stone to finding your audience. Next, take a look at your competitors. Who are they serving? Maybe your business serves someone a little bit different and that's why you're competitors, or maybe you're serving someone similar, or maybe you have a competitor that you'd like to strive towards and you'd like to reach more of their audience. Also a great place to start getting to know who you're blogging about, or blogging to, rather. Third, who visits your website? This is really key since you're going to be posting your blogs on your website. You want to know who's already there and who you want to attract. Finally, who are some established influencers in your industry? Influencer marketing can seem really, really big and really hard to get to. And when you think of influencer marketing, you might only be thinking of like Kim Kardashian, but it gets more granular than that. If you're seeing a lot of blogs by the same business or blog or person in your industry, that's a good sign that they're an influencer in your industry, and also a good place to start for you as far as choosing topics and as far as knowing who you're writing to, because one great thing to consider for your own blogging strategy is to write blogs that maybe those influencers will pick up and share on their own platforms to expand the reach of your own audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the first prompt on that tip sheet. If you have it in front of you, we're going to take just maybe 30 seconds to a minute to quickly define your audience. So if you have some answers already in your head of who your audience is, who you're trying to attract, what are they interested in, what questions do they have, now is a great time. Quickly jot down how you would define your business audience right now. All righty. A count of the 30. You can finish your thought 100%, but I do want to go ahead and keep moving. That tip sheet or whatever you're taking your notes on, you can absolutely, we invite you to go back later, flesh that out more. But we wanted to give you a good starting point and something to immediately take away. So next up, we're talking about why you should have not just a blog and be blogging on your website for your business, but why you should have a blog schedule. And the first point really is that consistency is key when it comes to blogging, and providing a consistent touch point, a consistent piece of content explanation from your business is, top of any big strategy. So having a schedule already ensures that you're hitting that consistency goal. And number two, you're able to provide value and variety of value. So planning your blogs ahead of time, you can see where you need to change topic ideas, keeping it fresh for your audience, but also ensuring that as you plan out and you think through, this is something my audience is asking me, this is something I'm going to write about and answer for them, you're ensuring that that piece of content is in fact valuable to them and it's something that they want to read and engage with. I also find in planning a schedule, I look for resources. Abby was talking earlier about, looking at maybe what some of the influencers in your industry are saying. Finding those resources in advance, not only am I jotting down what I want to blog about, but I'm already jotting down if I find a blog that I'd like to model mine off of, or a resource that would be great for me to link to when I do write that blog. Having that all ready to go when you sit down to write is really helpful. And that brings us to step 4 or point 4. And that is you avoid writer's block. And, you schedule a time, you sit down, and if you don't already have in mind what you're going to write about, it's taking additional time, right? So a blog schedule helps with that efficiency in knowing already exactly, maybe not exactly, but enough of what you want to sit down and write about. And finally, having a blog schedule, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, you're able to strengthen your overall marketing strategy. And again, we'll talk about this in a minute, but your blog schedule really can influence the rest of your content marketing efforts. So it's good to know in advance what you want to do.
Absolutely.
And now it's really about how you find relevant blog topics. So this is the number one question we get all the time when it comes to blogging for business. And that is, what do I write about? And there's a lot of places to draw from inspiration, and it is a little bit specific to what you and your business does, right? So that's where we'd recommend you start with your own business, and specifically breaking out kind of your products and or services that you provide. And if you provide one service, that's great. Maybe if you could break it out into specific processes, but I know just as an example for Keystone Click, we do and provide a lot of different services, whether that be website development and design or content marketing, blogging, social media. So all of those are different services that a blog is a great way to explain that process a little bit further, or give some of your expertise in that area, right? Because that's what your business does. Another great place to think of relevant blog topics is the most asked questions from your target audience. Maybe it's current customers that are asking you the same question over and over, or it's the question that you always get when prospects are first engaging with you. Those questions are great, not just as a blog topic, but even as your blog headline, right? Because if your audience is asking that question, chances are they'd really love a blog that answers that for them.
I'd also say, sorry if I
Yeah,
kind of interrupt you, Erin.
go ahead.
Chances are not only that they would love a blog, but that whatever question they're asking you, they're also typing into Google, and that'll help you show up in Google for them as well.
Yeah, and actually that brings us exactly into our next point. So thanks for that awesome segue. Insights from keyword research. So basic keyword research, knowing what your audience is searching for online, and then hitting those key terms, those key search terms, questions that they have with a blog is really important. And that also expands the reach of your blog. We'd also say, relevant topics, we talked a little bit about that with your audience, but also just topics themselves, top blogs written by your competitors, what your competitors are showing up as. If you have additional knowledge to share on a particular subject that your competitors are writing about, that's a great blog right there. The last one we'd say for relevant blog topics would be any recent changes that impact your business or your industry or your audience, right? So I have a star by this, a caution for you here. It's great to speak on trends and recent news, especially if they are having a significant impact on your business or your overall industry, right? That shows you are knowledgeable and keeping up with what's currently going on. But a word of caution here, blogs in essence really are meant to live on your website, and they're meant to continue to provide value. So recent news is not always that strong piece of evergreen content that's long lasting on your website, but there can be a balance, especially dependent on your business, of content that's fresh and related to recent news, and then content that's going to be long lasting, explaining a process that you've stuck by and just want to elaborate on further. So that's your word of caution there. This also brings us to our next prompt on our tip sheet. And that really is thinking of some of the answers to this question. So those topic areas, if you want to jot down quickly what you would break out your different services as, your different processes that your business uses, or if there's a question that immediately comes to mind that your audience is asking, we'd invite you to do that really quick. So we'll give you probably another 30 seconds to just quickly jot that down. Or if you've been doing that already, that's great as well. All right. I will also say, if you have questions at any point, you can drop them in the chat or the Q&A function in Zoom. We'll be happy to answer those. All right. Hopefully you've got at least one or two topics in mind. The next thing that's on your tip sheet, and I think that will be more of an exercise for you on your own, is actually a full month calendar for the year 2022. So what our idea is, and our plan would be, and what we'd recommend is plan out 12 topics coming from these different ideas of where you draw on, and then actually mark which month you'd like them to be on, right? And space them out too. So maybe talk about a product in February, and then your other product in July, and fill in those blanks with an answer to a frequently asked question. Maybe elaborate on a keyword that you know your audience is searching for, etc. But the goal is to kind of fill out that calendar. So for all of this year, you know what your business should be blogging about, and you've got that already penciled in. I'm going to go ahead and move on to this slide. So in a perfect world, once you've filled that out as, planning each of your blogs, 12 blogs for the year, Abby's going to tell you how to transform that. So go ahead.
Yeah, I would also say one thing, Erin, I was thinking about when we were talking about why having a blog schedule is important. And this is kind of a big one for me, just getting into content creation, is if you have a plan, you're much more likely to hold yourself accountable to actually write about whatever product you're selling in July, right? If you get to July 1st and you don't have a plan, it's really easy to be like, I'll do it next month. And then next month becomes next month and next month and next month. And then it never happens, right? So I really appreciate content calendars and blog calendars specifically for that accountability function. As you're filling out your own calendar, we really wanted to talk about how blogs work very well as kind of a foundation or a cornerstone for your entire marketing strategy. First of all, as Erin kind of alluded to before, most blogs that you write should be evergreen content. And that means that you can use them over and over and over again because they're a timeless topic in your industry. That being said, you can post about these blogs on your social media. You can make videos about them. They can really be extremely multi-purpose, which really helps you fill out all those little channels that you're wanting to use to market your business. That might seem a little overwhelming when you're like, well, I have a blog and I have a YouTube channel, I have a podcast, and then I have 4 social media channels. How am I ever supposed to figure out what I'm talking about in each of these places? Blogs really work as that great baseline content product. For example, obviously right now, at Keystone Click, we're talking a lot about blogs, right? We're talking about blogs right now. We published a blog about blogs earlier this month. Today, we had a really helpful digital marketing tip of the month about blogs as well. So you can see how that topic of blogs has really shaped our whole month of content, right? And it gives us something easy to talk about when we're like, well, shoot, it's Friday and I don't know what to post about. Blogs, there it is, right? It's there for you right away, and you have the whole year planned. You don't have to get as granular as doing all your whole year of social media a year ahead of time. And honestly, you shouldn't, because obviously social media moves very quickly and the turnover is very quick. But with those timeless evergreen topics, you'll have something to talk about all year long.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say as well, the point is, as we were saying earlier, to be consistent, but not just in your blogging, but in all of your touch points. And actually, this is also really a tool to work a little smarter and not harder
Mhm.
If you put the effort ahead of time into a great blog that you know is valuable to your audience, you know is something they wanted to read, you know has 5 tips on how to be the best social media poster, like each of those tips are smaller pieces of content that should and could live on other channels. So whether it's social media or it's something you highlight in your email newsletter, or email to clients, or it, as Abby was saying, it's a video that you create, it's a video you put on your YouTube channel, right? Um, you have that content all ready to go. And it also lives on your website too. So all of those channels are feeding back to your website, which is great for a whole host of reasons, but especially, you know, SEO, and also uh, from your website, they should be learning more about your business and contacting you, and that feeds your sales funnel. So, if we haven't given you enough time, we do invite you after this, or spending some time to really think about, what 12 blogs do I want to write this year? And also from there, say, all right, well, February, I'm talking about this, and I can also put that blog on these channels, and here's how. So it really does fill out your content marketing strategy in that way. So this slide is served more as kind of a quick summary of what we're talking about, and also some additional tips, just some basic best practices for writing a blog. But really, again, it's about knowing your audience, so that way you're intentionally writing your blog for your target audience. And I think it's important to not just look at current clients, but also if your target audience for future clients looks a little bit different, tailoring your blogs in that way to attract that new audience is going to be really important and really invaluable. Creating a blog schedule allows you to consistently provide valuable content over time. And with that, choosing your relevant blog topics, your business, your audience, your competitors, and your industry are all your best sources for blog topics. And really, those are kind of the different buckets, if you will, places to go to really see what people are talking about, what questions people have. All of those different spaces are really kind of your main sources to go and look for what you should be writing about. And lastly, as Abby beautifully explained, using your blog calendar strategically, that you're taking your blog calendar that we have for you in that tip sheet, and it's transforming into your overall content marketing backbone, not just your blog, but what other channels you're sharing that blog and more on.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. Finally, we have some just nuts and bolts best blogging practices for y'all. Um, Target between 800 and 1200 words. Blogs really fuel your SEO on your website because you have all these like long pieces of long form content that you're sneaking little keywords into, right? So 800 to 1200 words is really optimal for SEO and driving users to your site from search engine traffic. Always include a strong call to action. A call to action is a phrase, a sentence that you sneak in your blog, encouraging readers for whatever it is you want them to do next. If they're reading your blog, maybe you want them to give you a call. That's a perfect call to action. Calls to action often begin with action words like learn more or call or visit our website, things like that. just directing the user to whatever it is that you would like them to do next to move them along in the funnel. Finally, link to other content and resources. By this, we mean link to other content that's on your site. So you can really establish yourself as an expert in your industry, and also link to other content outside your site. That'll really help also boost your SEO.
And if you are planning ahead of time and you're jotting down sources ahead of time, you already have that ready to go when you sit down and write your blog as well. So really helpful there. So this is kind of our end of this first webinar, but we are going to spend some time taking and answering questions. We do want to point out that there are 2 more webinars that we're doing in February and March related to content creation. So if you're interested about blogs, we're also talking about social media and best social media posting practices, and also best practices for video in March. So those 2 you can find on our website. Go to keystoneclick.com/webinars and you'll be able to sign up for both of them. And if you also haven't already, you can subscribe to our webinars. You'll get notified of when there's a new one, but you'll also gain on-demand access to all of our previous webinars. And that's an incredible source of information too, with everything related to digital marketing. So now, if you have questions, again, let us know in the chat, send us a Q&A, and we'll spend a couple of minutes with you doing that. Okay, awesome. Question coming in. How many keywords is ideal per blog? How important are transition words? Can using past tense really hurt a blog? All right, cool. I'm just gonna go piece by piece here. So first question is, how many keywords is ideal per blog? So in your like SEO plugin on your website, you have a target keyword or key phrase. So you really want to use 1 or 2 as your main focus for that blog. You can optimize and then you can over optimize. So really, it's also about where you're going to place those keywords. So short answer is, for a blog, having 1 kind of keyword or key phrase that you're focusing on, making sure that it's incorporated in your content, but also in your headers and your title as well. So some of those other places will really help you hit that SEO goal. Abby, do you want to take a crack at the second one? Second question here.
I definitely can. I was going to add on to your answer of the first one as well.
Go ahead.
How many keywords is ideal? I will say blogs are a really great way if among your list of keywords you also have key phrases. Blogs are a really easy way to work those in. I know it can be hard in other website content to like shove these 3 words that might make up a key phrase for you, but blogs are really a great place to do that pretty seamlessly. The next question is, how important are transition words? I would say, from just a narrative, from a writing perspective, of course, depending on your topic, transition words are fairly important because you want to kind of lead your user and your reader through whatever steps you're suggesting they take, whatever you're explaining. They're really a great way to make sure that your user doesn't get lost and really help you kind of create a narrative as you're writing something that might not necessarily be something that you would think would take on a narrative form.
Yeah, I'd tack onto that too. using transition words, and also avoiding past tense. Yes, in a sense, but really the overall recommendations for blogs is writing conversationally and writing for your audience as well. And I think a lot of times blogs are breaking down maybe a more complicated process or service that your business specializes in. And so you don't want your blog to be too jargon-y. You want it to make sense for your audience. You want them to easily understand, oh, that's what that service is, or that's a really cool way of approaching this challenge that, wow, I recognize that I have, so maybe this is the right business for me to contact, right? So that's kind of the um, recommendation there. And then this last question, would linking to an outside source not take the reader off of your site? This is a great point. So it is important to link to outside sources because the goal is also that those outside sources recognize you as an expert, as a source of information, and they'll link to you. But whenever you're linking to an outside source, you actually can just toggle and direct that URL to open in a new tab or window. So that way they can still access that resource, but your website stays open for your user.
Mm-hmm. I did want to say, Erin, since you mentioned trying to keep your blogs a little bit further away from industry jargon, we did just actually write a blog on how you can write your blogs without using too much industry jargon. And I am going to drop it in the chat if anybody would like to take a look at it.
Perfect. Yeah, that'd be great. And then we did have another question. Are pictures important in a blog, a combination of text and pictures? Yes. So I would definitely break your blog up. I wouldn't say, full paragraphs of text can be really hard to read from a user perspective. You can break up your text with images, especially if those images elaborate on your points or give some greater detail in a graphical sense. But you can also break up your text with bulleted lists or numbered lists, things like that. I think pictures come more into play. It's always good to have a picture attached as like your feature image for your blog. So it's a graphical point that shows up in other places like Google, for example, or when you share that blog on social media. Having at least one image that relates to your blog serves you in those places as well.
I would also mention, as far as pictures go, one really great way to reuse your blog and repurpose it into a different type of content is by turning your blog into an infographic, which is just a graphical way to display the same information. And obviously not all blogs will lend themselves to this. But if you do make an infographic, there's no reason not to include it in that same blog post, because of course you'll have people visiting your website that aren't really into reading a blog and would rather look at a graphical representation of that information. Additionally, there is something to be said for images and SEO if you're filling out your meta descriptions properly and your alt tags. But if you're already really packing your blog with those keywords and key phrases, it's not going to do a whole lot for you or a whole lot more for you as far as SEO goes.
Yeah. Any other questions for us? All right. If you have questions for us, and obviously as you continue to plan out the rest of your blog calendar for the year. You can reach out to us. Our emails are on this slide, and we'd be more than happy to help you get started with blogging. But thank you so much for joining us today on this cold January day. We really hope that you are ready to get going with your 2022 blogs, and we're excited to read them.
Mhm.
All righty. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a great rest of your Thursday.